Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Meredith Medlin, and I'm glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining. Accion Opportunity Fund is proud to support entrepreneurs across the country through access to affordable capital and through educational opportunities like this webinar. And we're very grateful to our partners at MicroMentor for sharing that commitment to small businesses. As you may know, MicroMentor provides free access to business mentoring through their online platform. We're excited to hear a bit more about that valuable resource toward the end of today's conversation, so be sure to stick around for that. Our webinar presentation today will provide you with critical insights on psychological well-being and its effect on your entrepreneurial journey. We've all been through quite an emotional roller coaster this year, but small business owners have experienced stress and uncertainty in particularly acute ways. So that is why we are here to help today. We've got a fantastic speaker with us, but before we begin, I just want to briefly go over a few logistical and technology items before we get started. I'm sure you're all more familiar with Zoom than you used to be pre-pandemic, but just briefly here, you should be able to view our presentation through the Zoom webinar tool window on your desktop if you've joined us by computer. At the bottom of that window, you will see a black toolbar, and please locate the chat function in that toolbar. You can use that chat button to type any questions you may have throughout the presentation, and then I will administer a question and answer session following the discussion based on the questions that are typed into that chat window. We are recording today's webinar, so you can refer back to this information in the future. I will send an email containing a link to that recording shortly after the webinar concludes. In addition, that follow-up email will contain a very short 2-minute survey that just gives you a chance to tell us what you think of today's presentation. So please do take a couple of minutes to find that survey and give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. And now I'm very pleased to introduce today's expert presenter, Eleftheria Egel. An entrepreneur herself, Eleftheria owns Navigating Transformation, a unique company that assists women entrepreneurs as they chart their course through business ownership. She brings extremely valuable knowledge and experience to us today, so I really just can't wait to get started. Thank you so much for being with us, Eleftheria.
Thank you very much, Meredith. I'm very glad to be here and to share my experience and my knowledge, and I'm sure it will resonate with the experiences and the knowledge of many of the participants of our audience today. Thank you.
Great. So let's get started.
Yes. So let's start. I think the title of the webinar is "How Can I Help You Feel at Your Best?" And me is me, the mentor, and you is the entrepreneur. And it is important to start, the main questions to sort out at the beginning of this webinar, I think, is to determine who we are, that we are here, that is who the webinar is addressed to, and why we're here. So let's start with the definition of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and why entrepreneurs are so important for a country's economy. You can see on the screen that I chose one definition, academic definition of entrepreneurship. There are many, but the main words here is that it is a creative process by which opportunities to create future goods and services are discovered, evaluated, and exploited. The main elements here are the word process. That is, entrepreneurship is not something that is completed, unless, of course, we talk about serial entrepreneurs who sell their business with profit and they start another one, etc., etc. Then there is a deliverable, which is a product or a service. And then there is a person, the entrepreneur, who discovers an opportunity, evaluates the business opportunity, and then finally exploits it, that is, implements it and brings it into reality. The business opportunity that is discovered and evaluated may be a new one that is new to the market, it has not been in the market before, or it can be an existing one that the entrepreneur sees using a different perspective. Personality is very important in the evaluation of a business opportunity, because depending on our mindset, on our knowledge, on our needs, on our expertise and our desires, we see something, a product or a service, as an opportunity or not. I can give you an example for that. There is, let's say there is an app, I saw recently an app that informs parents of their children's progress at school. And for me, being a mother, of course, I see it as a great, a valuable business opportunity, because this issue touches me personally. But if an entrepreneur is not in this category, they just may pass by and not see it as an opportunity. Or another business opportunity, let's say that it is the one that an artisan or a farmer produces organic and they don't want to sell their products too expensive. So they find a way to sell directly to the market without intermediaries. These are just some examples. And of course, the motives for becoming entrepreneurs are different. The traditional one and the one that is prevalent in more traditional societies is necessity. That's why we talk about necessity entrepreneurs. For example, an individual does not have a job anymore, or there are no jobs in the country. So somehow individuals are forced to become entrepreneurs in order to make a living. And in this category, I would put also women, mothers, who have left work for a long time to bring up the family, and then they want to come back to work, but they don't find a job. So in a sense, they are obliged to become inventive and find out and create something of their own. And the second category of entrepreneurship is opportunity. We have opportunity entrepreneurs. This is an opportunity-driven entrepreneurship, is mostly seen in countries that promote innovation. It is interesting that women entrepreneurs, of course, outnumber men in the first category, that is in necessity-driven economies, whereas they lack in the second one. Maybe this is something for our women participants to think about why this is happening so. If we go to the next slide, we will see what kind, we'll try to define what kind of businesses does the term entrepreneurship encompass, because there seems to be a lot of confusion. So who is an entrepreneur at the end of the day? I think the best way to describe it is to say that all businesses that are not corporations, that is, there are solopreneurs, micro businesses, family businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises, are entrepreneurship businesses. And here on the screen, you can see a very good framework that shows the entrepreneurial stages. To me, it reminds me most of something like a family creation process. And I adapted it to add the various challenges that entrepreneurs face depending on the stages they are in, so as to link it with mentorship, because the challenges show clearly the kind of help they need. So let's start with the first stage, which is the pre-entry stage. It is just like when a couple thinks about having a child, it is, shall we have a child or not? And then they are reflecting on that. It's the same thing with the entrepreneur, with a potential entrepreneur. They're having a business idea or more business ideas, and they're trying to evaluate it or them, and they try to see if these business ideas can be translated into business and if there is a market for their business idea. Once this evaluation is done and it has become specific, the product or the service that they want to sell, then we come to the infancy stage. That is when the baby is born, and then the business starts. But this is the initial stage, so that's why we talk about nascent entrepreneurship, because then they have all these challenges at that phase, well, the baby's phase, that is, they need to manage to build legitimacy. That is, they need to be taken seriously and they need to be able to sell. Then as time advances and then the infancy, and then we go through the infancy stage, we come to the establishment stage. And this comprises the companies that are smaller than 3.5 years old, where we have a new business owner where the owner tries to survive, that is to pay the bills and to create some profits and to generate some profit. And finally, if the business manages to survive more than 3.5 years, we talk about a business that is in growth, and we have a successful business owner. And you see there the challenges. I've used red to mark the word uncertainty, 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 uncertainty. And these are the specific challenges that entrepreneurs face in each phase, in each stage of entrepreneurship. And of course, the expertise and the help that they need is specific to each stage. In the pre-entry stage, we have uncertainty about the what, that is how to make sure that my idea as an entrepreneur can be translated in business product and service. In the infancy stage, we have uncertainty about the process, that is how to build legitimacy. Then how can, for example, how can I create a customer base? Why will somebody buy my product if there's no previous record of excellence? Then the third stage, uncertainty, is about survival. That is how to make informed decisions, implement action, which goes more about management, leadership, operational management, supply. And then the last phase, it is uncertainty about the outcomes, that is how to develop the business. And here we have also, it's the moment probably when we hire an external manager, maybe when we expand in other international markets, or even when we sell the business with profit, of course. So what is important here, what I would like to outline here with the word uncertainty is that there are two elements in the word uncertainty. That is, uncertainties explicitly require knowledge and action. That is, I know how to do something, I know what to do, and I know how to do something, but implicitly they require choice. As soon as I have the knowledge of what is possible, which is I think the easiest part, then it is me, I, the entrepreneur, with my personality, my intuition, my experience, that I need to come in and choose. And already at that stage, you can see what important role self-efficacy or self-confidence will play, as it will influence how risky I will be, how confident I will be to find the right partners for my business, and how enthusiastic I will be to convince my potential clients that, well, you know, I am the one you have been waiting for to service you best, or that my product is the one that fulfills your needs. So before we go and talk about the self-efficacy and how it affects entrepreneurship, and then the role of psychological well-being and all that, and the role of the mentor, I would like us to address the second question, that is, at the end of the day, why are we creating, three organizations are creating this, this webinar? And we don't need to go to this slide now, not yet, because we'll go to the poll before. Why we're going to create we created this webinar, and why are we all here talking about entrepreneurs? So we'll start, we have two polls today. We'll start, Meredith will pull out the first poll. So it's one question. So I'm looking forward to your answers. So the question is, what percentage of all US employer firms are small businesses? You can guess, please, and submit. Well, okay, I can see that, okay, the 79% that they talk, that there are 79% is the percentage of all US employer firms that are small businesses, and not far away. Okay, so now we can go to slide 5, and then you will see actually what statistics say. That is, if you see here, we have 99%, I start with the 4th statistic, 99% of all employer firms in the US are small businesses. You see, numbers speak better than words. We cannot think of that and how important it is. So it is so obvious that we, majority of businesses, employers, and value creators of the economy. So just to give also to explain a bit the other numbers there, of enterprises in the micro businesses. Micro businesses means they have less than 10 employees. If we come to this 99% of all employer firms in the US that are small businesses, 81% of the 99%, that is 24.8 million, have no employees. So they are solo businesses. I mean, the numbers are, wow. And 99% the same. We have the same also percentage of businesses in the EU, in the European Union, which are small and medium-sized enterprises. And if we check that the global startup economy, that is businesses that start every year, they generate nearly $3 trillion in value per year. So let's see, I think it's interesting to see how these numbers have changed since March 2020, that the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown has started. So we have another poll, Meredith. Yes. So by what percentage did small business employment decrease during COVID-19 in the US? What do you think? %, they say 59%, okay, 70%, 32%, and 5%. So let's see, if we move to the next slide, we will see the answers. So actually, since March 13, 2020, total private employment dropped by over 15%, but job losses for small and medium-sized enterprises was at 17% in the US. And so the correct answer was 17%. And more than 70% of startups have had to terminate full-time employee contracts since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And if we go to the funding, just to get an idea, actually venture capital funding fell 20% worldwide in the first 3 months of 2020, while it plunged 50% in China. Of course, this is understandable since the pandemic started there. And also, there was 72% of the world's startups, so the revenue falls since the start of the crisis around 32%. These are just some numbers to see where we are now. So with this 17% of employment, actually, it's not that bad in that sense, but we are struggling. We entrepreneurs, we're struggling with all these negative emotions and also with our revenues falling down. So the question now is, and then the question has always been there, but now it just has become more prominent because of this fall in revenue and fall in employment rates. How can mentors help entrepreneurs to navigate safely the crisis? What MicroMentor did 2 things. From what I know as a mentor, I don't work for MicroMentor. First, to create a COVID-19 force of mentors these mentors agreed to offer their expertise and talents more intensely, that is more often, and also to mentor more entrepreneurs. And second, they created a pool of useful resources where entrepreneurs could find the information they needed, especially how they can ask for governmental assistance and so on. So this is actually the question, that is, how can mentors help entrepreneurs? We will explore in the following slides. So first, we will look into the functions that entrepreneurs have to accomplish, and second, how their success in accomplishing these roles is linked with self-efficacy. So we can go. Well, these are, I think, most of the roles, there might be more, that an entrepreneur is trying to accomplish. So these are the different hats that an entrepreneur wears. And this guy there in the picture, he seems to be overwhelmed, and who isn't? Because the entrepreneur does not only have to recognize a business opportunity, he or she or they also have to plan it and then bring it into fruition, which means here we have also the function of resource acquisition. You can see the third circle. Once the business has been created, then the entrepreneur, if they are alone, they need to do everything. That is secretarial work, sales, execution, back office work, and maybe also the cleaning. If they hire others, they will need to make sure that they hire the right person for the job and then manage and lead the employees. I would like to share here a personal example. I had a client who was a genius and genius IT person, and started his company, his solopreneurship, and then things went well and he needed to employ other people. And then he had problems actually to communicate to his employees what they needed to do. His application or his model was so much under his skin that he couldn't really understand why the employees didn't understand what they had to do, why the employees were confused, why they didn't manage to deliver, and why everyone was stepping into each other's feet. So what we did to sort this issue, it was very simple actually, we created job profiles and goals for each employee so that they knew what they had to do. So actually, depending on the expertise and the experience of each entrepreneur, they will face different challenges within these different roles. And the question then, of course, becomes, I think maybe you have had to ask the same question yourselves. I did ask myself many times. So how do I do all these things? Do I need help? Can I afford help? Am I humble enough to ask for help? Do I have the energy and the time to look for help? Or have the daily chores completely absorbed me? Do I understand that I need help? And here is where self-efficacy comes in again, and hopefully a mentor will come in. Self-efficacy is extremely important as it determines how we feel, how we think, how we motivate ourselves, and how we behave. I will explain this more in the next slides, but high self-efficacy will help an entrepreneur keep the spirit up and not fall in victimhood. That is that, people they don't appreciate, it's too good for them. Or it's not me, there's nothing that I need to change in my approach, it's them. High self-efficacy also will not let me get panicked and get smaller and smaller, feel weaker and incompetent. I suppose we all know the feeling, don't we? And avoid harmful and comparisons like competitor X is doing great, but he has studied in this Ivy League university, or he has a better network than me, or I wish I was more sociable, or I wish I had a better car, and so on. An entrepreneur with high self-efficacy is belief in myself, will remain centered and probably will conduct a short internal dialogue, something like, well, my dear Joe or Mary or Ellen, well, let's see, we have a problem here. Our sales go down. I think I've done the best of my ability. I still think my business is brilliant, but probably I need another perspective, or maybe There are processes that I can implement to reduce cost, but I don't know what to do. So I will need some help. Let me check how I can find a mentor. I'll show you in slide 8, in the following slide, how it all works. So how does self-efficacy impact an entrepreneur's well-being? I call it, I don't know if the term is correct, I call it something like a self-generated circuit and a self-generating circuit, because you see, one circle brings to the other, you can move clockwise, counterclockwise, and it seems that all the energy that is needed is there. So it is actually self-sustained. I don't know if it starts at the entrepreneur, then he has higher self-efficacy, which creates psychological well-being, and then the psychological well-being impacts the entrepreneur and then increases their self-efficacy. Or maybe it starts the other way around, that psychological well-being, that is, I feel well, and we will explain afterwards what it means, psychological well-being. It's not only not being ill, creates higher self-efficacy, which affects positively the entrepreneur to make better decisions, and then with their decisions, they feel happier. So that is how we will see. And also, if we go to the next slide, we will see where the mentor is in that. If you see, the mentor is there, the mentor is a booster and is linked with all three, that is with the entrepreneur, with the self-efficacy and the psychological well-being. I checked, as I'm not native English speaker, so I checked the Merriam-Webster dictionary for the definition of booster, and the simplest definition that I found is a booster is an enthusiastic supporter. However, I think there are, for those of us who are more enthusiastic, there are more powerful images. So I found two other definitions. So a booster, the first one is slide 10, a booster is a radio frequency amplifier for a radio receiving set. That is, the receiving set in our case is the entrepreneur, and the mentor is the amplifier. Or a booster, in the next slide, is the first stage of a multi-stage rocket providing thrust for the launching and the initial part of the flight. So depending on your mood and your state of psychological well-being, you can whatever definition you prefer. But in 2 words, the mentor supports, improves, and accelerates the whole circuit of self-efficacy, psychological well-being, and entrepreneur. So let's take things one by one in the next slide, and then we'll explain what is self-efficacy. Here, I'm giving you 2 definitions. The first one is the self-efficacy for everyone. That is, it is the belief in one's capabilities to mobilize the motivation, cognitive resources, and courses of action needed to meet given situational demands, which means that is my belief that I have the ability to be activated for actions, to think, and also to act in order to reach my target, to accomplish something that I want. Based on that, there is also a definition about entrepreneurial self-efficacy, and this is the belief entrepreneurs have in their own skills and capabilities to start and run new business ventures. And whereas the personal self-efficacy is influenced by our environment, by the country we have grown, about our family, about our education, about our personality. The second one, the entrepreneurial self-efficacy, you can see there are the factors. It is influenced by our personal self-efficacy, but also we shouldn't undermine here the importance of national or regional context. That is, how far does a country want to promote entrepreneurship and how they assist entrepreneurs with resources, just like knowledge and ease of financing. I would like here, I think, to emphasize that the self-efficacy is a subjective feeling. That is, I believe that I am capable. It's more a belief. It is my perception that I am capable. And this perception does not depend on outcomes, that is, on the number of skills I possess, but it depends on the belief that I'm able to do something in various situations. Those who have this belief, they will perceive difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than threats to be avoided. Also, those who have high self-efficacy, they have this belief in themselves, in their abilities, they believe that, well, they will give more importance to what they believe for themselves rather than what the others say. If the others say, well, oh, I don't think this idea is good, they will not take them into consideration. And now we're going to check with the sources, that is actually the sources, the keys to self-efficacy. The sources to self-efficacy are three: mastery, role modeling, and social persuasion. The most powerful for producing self-efficacy is mastery. And the most powerful for undermining self-efficacy is social persuasion. With mastery, I'll explain them shortly now. With mastery, we mean actually this experience, personal experience of success. That is, if we did something before and then we did it successfully, then we build a strong sense of self-efficacy. Whereas if we have failed before, then failure undermines mastery. What we see in COVID-19 now is very interesting. It is that entrepreneurs who were used to experiencing only easy successes and they used to expect quick results are more discouraged than those ones who have built their businesses step by step. So actually are the ones that are leaving sooner the market. Because the key word here in mastery, if things don't go the way that we want them to go, is resilience. Once entrepreneurs become convinced that they have what it takes to succeed, then they persevere in the face of adversity and they quickly rebound when there are setbacks. The second key to self-efficacy is role modeling. Role modeling, it is we see someone who is like ourselves, so that is we can actually relate with them, and we see them succeed in their efforts, and that raises our belief that yes, we can do it too. So in that sense, we are motivated because they are similar to us, so they don't have any exceptional qualities. And on the other hand, because they are similar to us, we resonate also with their behavior and ways of thinking. So by observing them, by having role models, we learn useful skills and strategies and how to apply them in order to manage the demands of our business, of our environment. And I come to the social persuasion, which is the third way of strengthening our beliefs that we have, what it takes to succeed. And this is done by encouragement. When our community, our family, our mentors encourage us that we can believe that we can accomplish our tasks, then we feel motivated to try harder to sustain our efforts. But when problems arise, if we have the social support, then we do not get lost in our self-doubts and then the feelings of unworthiness. We manage to be more stable emotionally. Of course, here we have with the social persuasion, we have to be very careful because many times we have an unrealistic boost in self-efficacy. I mean, I can always think, for example, my mother, who always thought that I could do everything. So in that case, we have exactly the opposite effect, because it's just like a balloon which is inflated, but there is nothing material, there's nothing inside, and then it bursts when it is tested in real environment. On the other hand, if we have people who have been persuaded that they lack capabilities, and then they tend to avoid challenging activities that cultivate potentialities, and then they give up and they say, well, how can I do it? Well, I'm not sure that I can do it. In that case, actually, their disbelief in their capabilities, they create their own behavior validation. That is what we call this self-realized prophecy. I believe I cannot do it, and at the end, I cannot do it. So I think it is important here to outline one fact about this self-efficacy and its sources, that self-efficacy is not stable. That is, we don't always have high self-efficacy or low self-efficacy, but there are variations. These variations depend on our emotional and physical state, which changes. For example, when we're stressed, we interpret this emotional state as signs of vulnerability to poor performance. If our activity involves physical strength and then suddenly we have pain, we see that we're not able to perform. So it is very important to be able to keep our stress under control in order to reduce the stress reactions. And what is also very important in order to keep this stability in our self-efficacy, it is to not allow to follow the negative chatter of our minds. When something happens negative, we usually start this endless scenario of apocalypse that create negative emotions. Oh, that will never work, or I'm not good enough, why did I try it, I've been an idiot, etc., etc., etc. So this instability of our self-efficacy, which is due to our inability to keep our distance from our internal chatter, that is, we're not centered, we don't stay in our center, but we react to something that came from the environment, to a negative emotion, to a negative outcome from the environment. This is the reason why psychological well-being is both an outcome and a source of self-efficacy. That is, on the one hand, high self-efficacy creates to us a feeling of well-being. On the other hand, our psychological well-being helps us weather environmental changes that affect our stress level and our internal negative chatter. And if we see it in the case of entrepreneurs, I mean, I'm sure you will agree with me that this is highly valid, because the environments in which entrepreneurs work are often unpredictable and they are subject to rapid change. So we face high levels of risk, workloads are intense, we are responsible for our company and the employees, and we frequently operate under severe financial constraints. So psychological well-being will provide us with the mental hardiness we need to effectively cope with the work-related demands. So let's move to the next slide to see what psychological well-being is. As I said before, psychological well-being is not only the absence of illness, but is the presence of something positive. Actually, the term psychological well-being comes out of positive psychology. And here, and it has 6 dimensions: personal growth, positive relationships, autonomy, purpose in life, self-acceptance, and environmental mastery. I will just explain them shortly. So let's start with personal growth. Is a sense of continued growth and development as a person. Yes, I want to have new experiences. I want to see the world in a different way. I want to learn more. Then positive relationships with others. It means that I have the qualities to be agreeable, to be loved by the others, and to also to have good equal relationships. That is, people can describe me as a giving person, that I'm willing to share my time with others, I'm helpful and empathetic. Then autonomy. Autonomy is a sense of self-determination. That is, I'm confident in my opinions, even if they are contrary to the general consensus. Then we have purpose in life. It is the belief that our life is purposeful and meaningful. That I would put here also the word calling, personal calling. That is why we do what we do, what we are here for. Then self-acceptance. It is the positive evaluation of myself now, of my past, even though I made mistakes, and of what I'm looking forward to achieving in the future. And environmental, the last one is environmental mastery, which is I have the capacity to manage effectively my life and the surrounding world. That is, I'm not reactive to my environment, but I am proactive. And it is very interesting. While I was reading and I was doing the literature review for this presentation today, it was very interesting that I found out that research has demonstrated that actually the reasons why many entrepreneurs many people are aiming for entrepreneurship is because they are aiming at achieving psychological well-being. And many of the entrepreneurs consider as entrepreneurial success not so much the financial abundance or great profit, but strong motives to achieve greater autonomy, independence, the opportunity to engage in work they find meaningful, and also they have the desire by being entrepreneurial to emancipate from social structure or conditions that they find restricting. Interesting, isn't it? So I want to show next slide how there is a scale, how we measure well-being. And here, these 6 dimensions, you can see the 6 dimensions on the left. And then there is a scale, a Likert scale from 1 to 7. And here I just give an example. High, a person that scores highly in self-acceptance. And then on the right-hand side, the person that scores low in self-acceptance, and in all the other dimensions, what are their characteristics? So a high scorer in self-acceptance, as I write there, has got a positive attitude towards self, which means that I accept also all the aspects, the multiple aspects of myself, including the good and the bad qualities. And also I feel positive about my past life, even though I made mistakes. Whereas at the low end of the scale, you see that actually a low scorer feels dissatisfied with themselves, they are uncertain, they wish they would be different. In the second dimension, the positive relations with others, well, the person, the high scorer feels warm, satisfying, trusting, and the low one is isolated, frustrated, and not willing to make compromises. The one who is high on autonomy is self-determining and independent, whereas the low one is concerned about the expectations of others and relies on judgments of others. The one who scores highly in environmental mastery is competent in managing the environment, whereas the other one has got difficulty managing everyday affairs. The purpose in life, the one with this high score has goals in life and a sense of directness, and the low scorer lacks a sense of meaning in life. And the last dimension, personal growth, the high scorer has a feeling of continued development, and the one with the low scorer has a sense of personal stagnation. So, as I explained above, the instability of self-efficacy, which is due to our inability to keep our distance from our internal negative chatter and our inability to reduce our stress reactions, is the reason why psychological well-being is both an outcome and source of self-efficacy. Because if you see there the positive, the positive scores of psychological well-being is actually high self-efficacy. And the negative, the low ones, they're negative self or low self-efficacy. In the next slide, I want to show you also a different way to see the truth of the above, because you see in the middle, we have there these 6 dimensions of psychological well-being, and then around them is the self-efficacy. And we know that the belief that we have in our ability is a powerful drive and influences our motivation to act, the effort we put in the endeavor, and then the persistence of coping mechanisms in the face of setbacks. And of course, this persistence of coping mechanisms is probably the most important outcome to go through the challenging COVID-19 period. So I just wanted to give some examples to show you, because all these 3 sources of self-efficacy, they are realized by 4 processes, but I see that the time is going by, so I'll just try to be very quick in that part. So I want to give you some examples how self-efficacy is psychological well-being, and the other way around, that is chicken and the egg question. For example, the stronger the perceived self-efficacy a person has, the higher the goal challenges entrepreneurs set for themselves, and the firmer their commitment is to them. The people who regard themselves as highly efficacious attribute their failures to insufficient effort, whereas those who regard themselves as inefficacious attribute their failure to low ability. Then people, for example, people's belief in their coping capabilities affect how much stress and depression they experience in difficult situations. Those who believe that the situation are external and they can control the environment, they do not get overstressed or anxious. But those who believe they cannot manage threats, they experience high anxiety arousal. So let's move to the next slide. This is where it's just a repetition of the one I showed before. That is how the mentor boosts, for the reasons that I explained, the whole process between psychological well-being, self-efficacy, and entrepreneur. And I want to name, there is a model, I think it's very interesting, where all this work is shown through function that a mentor Can we move to the next slide? So here there is this model of St. John of 2012, and they're talking about the functions of a mentor's roles, and they refer to the different roles played by the mentor in the mentoring relationship. And we have the psychological functions, that is, the first group is the psychological functions, the second is the career-related functions, and the third one is the role model functions. The psychological functions, they have 4 subgroups. That is, the mentor there supports the entrepreneur psychologically. That is, it is more this social persuasion part. That is, they act as reflectors. That is, as a mirror that reflects the image the mentee projects to others. They act as reassurance. That is, they act like a pressure valve, enabling the mentee to evacuate accumulated stress and put problems into perspective. They motivate. It's just like a football trainer or a Zen master who helps the mentee build self-confidence. And then finally, as a confidant, that is a friend to whom we can confide. The second group, the career-related functions, are related more with the cognitive parts, with the knowledge that is required for doing the work. So the first one, subgroup, is integration. That is, the mentor facilitates the integration of the mentee in the business community by presenting him to business contacts who may be of need in the future. The second one, information support. The mentor gives the mentee information. He transfers various types of personal knowledge, including business management, laws to be aware, useful information, and so on. The third one, confrontation. The mentor plays devil's advocate, that is, they confront the mentee's ideas to help them further their reflection. The fourth one, the role is of the guide. When problem solving, the mentor helps the mentee improve problem comprehension, widen problem vision and content. And finally, the role model function, which is the same role modeling, the source of self-efficacy. So I think more or less that was that from me. I would have loved to share also my personal experience working at MicroMentor, or my experience as a mentor and mentee, but I don't know if we have time. It seems that I have taken more time than I had thought I would have.
Oh, that's quite all right. I really appreciate all the insights you've shared. I feel like this information is so valuable and helpful. So, I mean, thank you for taking the time to walk us through it. I suppose we can go to a couple of questions. So, audience members, if you would navigate to that chat box in the Zoom window and feel free to type in any questions that you have, and we'll get those answered for you today. I can go ahead and start. I have one question that I thought of right at the top of your presentation, when you really spent the time to help us reflect on what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I think thinking of those kinds of traits can be really helpful in building that self-efficacy and seeing how we as entrepreneurs might have those traits, and that kind of helps build our confidence. So if my question for you has to do with that relationship. So if a small business owner doesn't currently necessarily identify with some of the traits you mentioned, like creativity or innovation or perseverance, how can an entrepreneur kind of cultivate some of those traits within themselves?
Yes, that is the role actually of the mentor. They can come to MicroMentor, and then they to find a mentor that speaks more to them, that resonates more with them. And then actually through this, I keep this last slide, I think it shows it better. So even career-related functions that is actually more business, more related to business, even they are, the self-efficacy is involved in them, because depending on our self-efficacy, we will decide the level of risk that we will take, or how open we will be, or how confident we will be about promoting our product. So whether we want it or not, this psychological function, that is the role that the mentor plays through these psychological functions, they will be present while building, while discussing on the business issues, on business problems. So through that, then the entrepreneur will be able to improve their self-efficacy, to improve their mastery, to improve their, if, for example, a mentor tells them, well, you know, I find what you're saying makes lots of sense and I would go for that. So it is this social environment that gives them the courage to move on, to do something. Mm-hmm. And then if success, the social persuasion. So if success is there, then they will trust themselves more. So then we have the mastery and higher self-efficacy.
Yeah,
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, that everything sort of reinforces, each piece reinforces the other. So thank you. As we're getting some questions coming in, I do want to note that we are recording the webinar right now, and we'll be sending out the recording later on today. So you'll have it just within a few hours, and you're welcome to refer back to the information and share it with anybody who may not have been able to join us live. So one more question. I think we have time for one more, and then we'll move on a little bit. We have a question here. Do you recommend any particular books on self-efficacy if someone's interested in learning more? Oh, look at that.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, here we have the references. I think it's Bandura. I think it's, I don't know if it's that page or it's the next one, or well, look at that. Yes, Wood and Bandura, 1989. If you look the name Bandura, this is self-efficacy. He started the social cognitive theory, and self-efficacy is part of that. So there's a great literature on that, and there are many books. And I mean, I chose actually the gist of all of this. So what is there, you will find, let's say, an expansion, an explanation, a long explanation and examples of what is here in the presentation. This is the
Fantastic.
link.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. It's so helpful to have all of these so folks can refer back and find more reading. So thank you. All right. So now that we've answered some questions, we are excited to shift gears here in our last few moments and just share more about Accion Opportunity Fund's partnership with MicroMentor for finding that value in mentorship. So for that, I will bring in my colleague, Josefa. Thanks for being with us, Josefa.
Thank you, Meredith, for your mastery facilitation once again, and Eleftheria for enlightening us with this wisdom. I think it speaks to all of us, whether we're entrepreneurs or not, areas of psychological well-being like self-acceptance. So thank you for speaking to us in all aspects of our life. And thank you all for participating in this journey with us over the last hour. As was mentioned at the top, this is a collaboration with Eleftheria, MicroMentor, and Accion Opportunity Fund. And this is actually our exciting sort of official launch of the partnership between ourselves and MicroMentor. And this being part of our new strategy, whereas Accion Opportunity Fund is the nation's leading nonprofit small business lender. And we believe in, small dollar loans, helping to inspire entrepreneurs, help entrepreneurs, and create change in our local communities, especially with our recent affiliation with the Accion U.S. network this past spring. We are now focused on a national strategy of developing new products, establishing new partnerships, and promoting financial education. And so this webinar is just one step in that direction. And we are excited to officially go out into the communities and offer MicroMentor to our many clients and our many friends in the small business community. So with that, I did want to thank MicroMentor and our new partner, Sam Orwig. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sam to close us out.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josefa. Sam Orwig here from the MicroMentor team. Just to kind of second those sentiments, we are so appreciative of Eleftheria, not only for putting together this wonderful presentation, which was really insightful for us, kind of better understanding the dimensions to which a mentor could help, but also just for all of her support on the MicroMentor platform as a volunteer mentor. So genuinely, thank you very much for all that you put into this. This is just terrific information. Yeah, just to kind of close this out here, I wanted to share a little bit about MicroMentor. It is a completely free online platform that facilitates connections between volunteer business mentors and entrepreneurs around the world. We're actually a part of the larger humanitarian organization Mercy Corps, with offices in over 40 countries around the world, and the reach of our platform is just to about 179 different countries. So we're one of the world's largest business mentoring platforms. And as Eleftheria mentioned, we have built out some kind of COVID response resources, including a COVID response task force featuring Eleftheria herself. And in addition to our general MicroMentor platform, we also have built out a specific community in partnership with Accion Opportunity Fund to specifically kind of meet the needs of their member network. So for those on the call who are already on MicroMentor, you know where to go, micromentor.org. However, for those who may be new or hearing about it for the first time, I would encourage you to visit micromentor.org/A as in Apple, O as in Oscar, F as in fund. MicroMentor, perfect, it's in the chat as well, micromentor.org/AOF to sign up for free and connect with mentors like Eleftheria. So that's kind of my call to action to sign off here. But again, I'd just like to thank you, Eleftheria, for your time spent in preparation of this and for all of the participation here today. So thank you all.